Today is April 9th, 2024. We are interviewing Eugene Beck. My name is Esther Finder. Mr. Beck is in Palm Desert, California. I am in Henderson, Nevada, in the United States, and the language will be English. Thank you for speaking with us today. How are you feeling?
Good.
Good. What is your name, sir, and can you please spell it?
Eugene Beck, E-U-G-E-N-E-B-E-C-K.
Are you known by any nicknames?
Gene.
Where were you born?
Akron, Ohio.
And when were you born?
April the 23rd, 1923.
And how old are you today, sir?
102 weeks, I'll be 101.
Happy birthday early.
Thank you.
What was your father's name?
Harry Lewis Beck.
Where was he born?
In Hungary.
And what work did he do?
He was a butcher.
Do you know when he came to the United States?
No, approximately 1880 in that area.
And what was your mother's name?
Elizabeth Markowitz.
And where was she born?
Hungary.
When did she come here?
About the same time, I imagine. I don't really know, but I believe it's about the same time.
And what work did she do?
She was a seamstress for a designer.
Can you tell us, please, a little bit about your hometown during your childhood? What was it like?
Akron, Ohio was just a community, I think around 250,000. It was known as the rubber capital of the world, where all the tires were made. There was there was a little anti-Semitism. I was called names a couple of times, but there was very little anti-Semitism there.
Were there many Jews there?
No.
What religious traditions did your family observe?
Judaism.
Did you have a favorite holiday?
Not me, no, I didn't.
Did you go to services at the synagogue?
Until I was about 9 or 10.
What did you do for fun when you were a kid?
Repeat that?
What did you do for fun when you were a child?
I had no hobbies. I was just stayed home and read a lot. I was an avid reader, read a book a day.
Did your family have any military tradition?
No.
I know you were young, but what do you remember hearing or reading about Hitler in his early days in power in Germany in the 1930s?
Well, I remember mostly everything because I read about it in the paper and possibly heard about it on the radio.
So what kinds of things?
Well, I knew about the persecution of the Jews. I didn't know too much about the Holocaust, but I knew his hatred of the Jewish people and his attempt to exterminate them.
Did you follow the 36 Olympics in Berlin?
I did not hear that.
Did you follow the 1936 Olympics in Berlin?
To a degree, yes. Yes.
Any memories of that?
No, I remember Hitler walking out when James Owen, I think it was James Owen, won his award.
How did you learn that Nazi Germany invaded Poland and the war started? How did you find out about that?
I probably either on newspapers and on radio, or both,
How did the,
or both. Radio and newspapers.
how did the people around you react to the news?
I don't recall any reaction, actually. Conversation, yes, but no typical reaction of any kind.
Did you anticipate American involvement in this war, or did you think that the Americans would be apart from it?
No,
Did you have any?
I thought we would participate in the war.
Why did you think that?
Because I believe that we had no choice but to enter the war on behalf of Western civilization.
How closely did you follow the war news in the time before the United States got involved?
As closely as I could from the newspapers and the radio.
What are your memories of Pearl Harbor?
What are my memories of what?
Pearl Harbor.
Well, I remember vividly because I remember I was in Florida at the time and I was working and the news came over the radio.
What immediate impact did that news have on you?
I don't think it had an immediate reaction, but it did affect me because now I wanted to join the Army.
And did you try to join at that time?
No.
What were you doing at that time besides being in Florida?
I was a bellhop at one of the hotels in Miami Beach.
So what happened in your life between Pearl Harbor and joining the military?
I became a master machinist and worked in Detroit, Michigan at, a Prussian machinery company, and I was deferred from the draft.
Why was it deferred? Was it considered special for some?
I was in an essential war factory.
While you were still doing this essential work, what did you know about how Jews were being treated in Europe?
Only what I read. I don't think it had a major impact. I think I was too young to understand.
When did you get connected with the military?
When did I what?
When did you start to serve in the military? When did you join?
March the 1st, 1943.
Can you tell us about that?
I went down to enlist and they wouldn't take me that day because I was deferred with the 2C on my draft card. I went back and quit my job. The next day I went and volunteered.
What is 2C a reference to?
2C means you were deferred from the draft.
Because of your work?
Yes.
And then what happened?
The next thing I knew, I was in a bus on the way to Fort Lewis, Washington. Or a train, rather, I should say.
What kind of training did you get?
Typical basic training, which I hated. mostly physical, becoming strong and being available for whatever they assign me to.
To what unit were you assigned?
At the present, I was assigned to the 45th Division in Fort Lewis, Washington.
And what was your rank?
Private.
And what were your duties?
Follow orders.
And who was your commanding officer?
I don't know.
Where were the other members of your unit from?
All over the country.
Were there any Jews?
I don't know. Religion was never a topic of discussion.
Did you experience any anti-Semitism?
No.
Were there any African Americans in your unit?
No.
Were you trained for anything special?
I was trained for the infantry just to fight.
Is there anything you can share with us about your training or that time period? Any episodes you want to share?
I was fortunate enough to have a high score on my examination and was sent to college to become a civil engineer in earning a bachelor's degree in 18 months, accelerated program.
Was this during the war?
This was during the war. This was after I left basic training. I went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and wound up at the New Mexico School of Mines in Socorro, New Mexico.
And what did you do there?
Studied 8 hours to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. But it only lasted 6 months because they were getting ready evidently to invade Europe, and I was called to duty overseas because I had an infantryman's number, called MOS.
What is MOS?
It's a service number detailing what is your basic training about. And I was trained as an infantryman, and that's the number I had.
When did you ship out?
I don't have the exact date, sometime around August, I think, that year of 43.
And what year was that, please?
43.
And where were you initially sent?
I was initially sent to southern France with about 3 days after the invasion of southern France by our division and the 45th Division.
Can you take me by the hand and walk me through your time in Europe with the military? What kinds of experiences did you have? What would you like us to understand about that experience that you had?
Well, I don't think people realize the difference between an active soldier, of which there was 16,500,000, and an infantryman. Actually, only about less than 1 million people out of those 16.5 actually saw combat. And my experience was hurry up and wait, walk, fight, and continue walking until the next fight. It was constant battle. Well, let me put it there, it was either boredom or terror.
Do you have any idea where you went as you walked, fought, walked, fought?
All I know is that I entered, and my first day of combat was about 24 hours after I hit the beach. And it just continued on until I think it was called Northwind, which is the Battle of the Southern Bulge. And at that point, I was wounded at the Siegfried Line, which is the demarcation zone between France and Germany. And on December the 17th, I was sent on a recon mission to a town called Bunenthal. We were going to take that town, and I was sent. I was part of the squad that went in to reconnoiter the town. We entered the town. We saw nothing. We came back. The next day, we attacked the town. We got in the middle of the stream on a broken bridge, and all hell broke loose. They were waiting for us. We couldn't retreat, so we went ahead to the houses that were closer than anything else for safety. And we found shelter in a very deep cellar. And we were there for 8 days, roughly, and was considered missing in action, either deceased or captured. And telegrams had gone out to the families that we are missing. At any rate, on Christmas Eve, about 9 o'clock, there was a huge shelling of the town. We were still in the cellar, but we could come upstairs because the Germans already considered us evidently dead because of starvation. And they burnt the house down on top of us, but we felt nothing because we were so deep. And at about 45 minutes after this intense shelling, 2 men came from the mountains, which were Americans. And one came into our house, one came into another house, and they told us the shelling would continue for 30 more minutes and we were taking a run for it. About 11 o'clock, we ran to safety. Now the shot was fired. We went up to the top of the mountain where we spent the night, and next day we went to the rest area where they were having a Christmas dinner, which we gorged ourselves on and threw up everything that we ate. That I remember.
You mentioned the experience was boredom or terror.
Well, let me explain that. When you're walking, when you're going north, you don't know where you are. You don't know where you were. You have no method of knowledge as to what is happening around you. You only know what is happening 10 yards or 20 yards away. So next thing you know, you're in a fight, and initially there is a little fear, but once you get into the combat itself, that fear disappears and the adrenaline sets in and you just do what you have to do.
Are you aware of personally killing members of the enemy armies?
Am I aware whether I did or not? Well, yes. I'm aware.
For those of us who have never experienced war, never experienced combat, can you share with us what goes through your mind when somebody starts shooting at you?
The only thing you can think of, you have no thought. You just do. You shoot back. You try to protect yourself as best you can.
Looking back, now I know at the time you didn't really know where you were going, but looking back, can you tell us what geographical area
I can only tell you we came from southern France, from the beach in near Marseille. I think it was east of Marseille that we had. And we just walked all the way through to Munich. And I don't know the names of any towns because we never knew the names of towns. It was constant battle. We were in the front lines constantly. You think we had no hot food. We worked. We ate. You know what K rations are? I think you probably know what they are. That's all we ate. And
Can
sometimes
you
we,
explain?
huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sometimes you ran into a farmhouse and then you grabbed some eggs and which you made in your helmet. That's what you. But that was rare.
For people who don't know what K rations are, can
K
you describe
rations
what
are a
that?
box, a little box. It contains 4 cigarettes. It contains Spam, and it had a chocolate bar in it. That's what you ate for breakfast, dinner, and supper. If you ate 3 meals.
I have several questions. Did your unit take any prisoners?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I took. There were times when German soldiers would hold up their hands and surrender, and you went to pick them up. I went. I don't remember exactly where this was. I went. There were 2 soldiers. They sent me with another man to pick them up and bring them back for interrogation. When they saw we were treating them nicely, about 40 more people came out, and we had 40. We took back 40, 50 prisoners. We treated them humanely. We never tried to shoot them or anything.
Did you have much contact with civilians?
No.
During your time in battle and making your way through, did you hear any of the Nazi propaganda from Access Sally or
No.
Law at
No,
Home?
we had no
None of that.
radios or anything. We had no way of hearing any of that. We knew about it, or we heard about it, but we never heard it ourselves.
What did you know about concentration camps at that time?
Nothing.
How did you learn about them?
When we hit Dachau, I knew that there were concentration camps, but I didn't know anything about them until we hit the town of Dachau. That time I remember. I didn't even know then that that was a concentration camp. It was a building. And we were not told that it was a concentration camp. So I knew very little.
So what did you learn?
I learned how to hate. I think that's the most important thing. I remember we never actually went inside. We were late. The compound was already surrounded, and the guards were either killed or taken prisoner. And we were on standby. We were supposed to go, but we didn't. But somebody, I don't remember exactly who it is, had a camera. And they took a picture of the railroad. They also did not get inside, but they took a picture of the railroad cars and all those dead bodies lying down on the ground. And that picture haunts me to this very day. There was a little young man, his eyes were open, and he was staring at me. That has never left my mind. I can't get rid of it.
Prisoners. Did you see any of the prisoners from the camp?
Not at that Dachau, but there was a holding camp 3 miles away that held 2,500 prisoners. Prisoners, I don't know really who they were. They were prisoners in a compound that was surrounded with barbed wire and big guard for the guards up on top. We hit that place, And that's our first experience of seeing emaciated men. I mean, some of those men didn't look like they weighed more than 60, 70 pounds.
Can you describe what you saw, what you smelled, what you
You
heard?
didn't smell anything, but you saw things that you can never forget. For example, we started to throw the K ration boxes and how the prisoners almost killed themselves trying to get to it. And of course, they were stopped because it wasn't healthy for them to eat like that, and it wasn't healthy for them to scramble to try to survive. I've never seen anything like this and never will again. It was hell.
What did the American soldiers do to help these prisoners?
What? Repeat that?
What did the Americans do to try to help? You mentioned they threw their K
We were
rations,
not
but then they
allowed. We were not allowed to go in because of the probability, or actually typhoid was evident in the camp, and so special units came by to treat the prisoners. We were not allowed to have contact with any of them.
once you had experience now with two camps, when did you start to realize how many camps there were throughout Europe?
I don't think I really knew the answer to that question until after I left and came back to the States. I had heard about Bundenthal, but that's the only one I had heard. Not Bundenthal, what's the other camp, the big camp? I don't remember the name of it now. But I didn't know that. I knew about Dachau now, but then I knew about the gas chambers. I knew everything that I wanted to know, that I even didn't want to know.
Had the military prepared you, not just you personally, but you, the soldiers, had they prepared you at all for what you might find at these camps or that you might find camps?
No, and that's a tragedy. We did not know what to expect. The training at the base camp is really what we all went through, is learn how to fight and learn how to be strong. But nothing. We never knew what fighting was about. We never knew what the camps were like. We never knew anything. You just lived day to day.
When you came upon the two camps, were there any prisoners outside the perimeter?
At the cow or at the holding camp?
Either one.
At the cow, no, they were not allowed out. One did come out, they were immediately taken back in, so that's the only, I did see him. I understand he was a Polish prisoner. That I saw nothing else until we hit the other camp. And then the first thing I saw was two men who had escaped from the camp and were chasing a dog. And that's vivid, because evidently they were trying to catch the dog in order to eat. That I remember well.
What did you know about who the prisoners were?
We didn't.
Could you tell their ages?
They were all ages, though you couldn't tell. They all looked alike. They all had a uniform, a prisoner, or whatever they were. You couldn't tell anything. They were mostly men, and I guess there were some boys there, but you didn't know. You never got that close anymore. You moved on.
Were you aware of the diseases in the camp?
Yes. Only,
Sickness.
yes, I was aware. I was aware only because they told us we were not to contact any of those prisoners or talk to them because, and I think the word was typhoid was evident.
let me just clarify something. I think you said that there were some guards that had been captured in the camps. Did I understand that correctly?
That were captured.
Yeah. Inside the camp. Were there any guards still
Yeah,
under American?
from what I understand, some of the guards had left, some of the guards were killed by the prisoners themselves, and some of the guards were captured, and I don't know what happened to them.
So there was some revenge taken inside the camp, the prisoners against the guards.
When they saw the Americans, I think, I don't know when it happened, but it had to happen just before we arrived.
And what was your understanding of what happened?
My only understanding was some of the guards were killed, some of the guards were captured, and some of the guards escaped. That's all. And that we were not to go near any closer to the camp, although we were probably within 25 feet of it, because of the incidence of illness, especially, again, typhoid.
You know what countries the prisoners were from?
No.
Were there any American POWs?
I did know one. He was from Poland.
Were there, to the best of your knowledge, were there any Allied POWs in either of the camps?
No. I don't think. I don't know.
How long were you at Dachau?
I was only there for probably 8 hours at the most.
And the other camp, how long were you there?
We just went by. We did not stop there. We continued. They forced us to move on. They didn't want us to have any communications with it.
Did you see or pass any other concentration camps?
No.
Looking back at your wartime experience, where did you see the worst combat?
I don't think you can specify one specific place. There were several places that were really bad. Some that you thought were going to be bad didn't work out being bad. There's no specific one that I can recall. They were all bad. But let me point out to you that it is important that we were not afraid. We had a job to do and we did it. That's how we were taught. And I think it was good training, because if you didn't follow orders, you would have a lot of problems. We learned to follow orders. Combat was a personal experience, and I can't tell you that one was worse than the other. I can tell you some of the good points that happened. Well, one of them was that we were going to take a hill. There was a hill that were German soldiers on top, and they told us to form a line 3 feet apart, just a long line. One in black. There's more than one line. We were the first line. I was on the left flank. And they said we were going to take the hill. And I didn't think much about it until they said, fix bayonets. I don't know if you know what bayonets are, but when we had to fix bayonets, then you stop to think, my God, I'm going to be in hand-to-hand combat. Secondly, I'm on the first line. If they have machine guns up there, they're going to mow us down, because all they have to do is sweep. Fortunately, we got to the top of the hill and the soldiers had retreated. So that was a good thing. There are a lot of other scarier incidents, but I don't think they're important. All of them are scary. Only scary before. When you're in battle, that fear leaves you.
Is there anything else would like to share with us about your combat experiences?
Well, there's one interesting experience that I had when I was wounded. We were attacking the secret line. My platoon was the first platoon. And we got there, we had to climb over barbed wire, and then we started moving up toward many pillboxes. You know what a pillbox is. They're cement structure with little slots where they have machine guns. And when we got halfway there, we were pinned down. And I was either by a bullet when I was there, I don't even know, or a shrapnel, my lower half of my left ear was shot off. Or hanging by a thread. I didn't know that. All I knew, I was knocked out, and I woke up, and I saw all that blood running down my face. And the first thing you think about is call medics. And the medics called back, we can't get to you, we're pinned down. Stay down. The only thing I thought about, I didn't think about anything, but I had to get back to the rear echelon to find out what the hell's wrong with me. And I stood up, and they kept yelling, stay, get down. But I didn't. I walked all the way back, and not one bullet hit me. I could hear them, but I never stopped. I was very lucky.
Was that the only wound that you had, was your ear?
I also had frozen feet because I was I didn't get a prolonged for frozen feet because you didn't draw blood. But I was in the middle of the winter, you're in a foxhole with snow, and you're sitting there in there. And after about 60 days, you don't realize that you can't feel anything from your feet. So I went back to the hospital for that. 10 days.
And after the 10 days, did you go back to
Yeah, back to the C Company. And that's when I was promoted because everybody else was being shot or killed or wounded. And I became a platoon sergeant because they had nobody left.
How many of your comrades fell in battle? I don't need an exact number, but just generally speaking.
I think overall the replacements were so fast you never got to remember their name, probably 90%.
Can you share with us the last couple of weeks and months of the war? What was that like for you?
Well, after we left Dachau, we went on to Munich, Germany, in Bavaria, and where we commandeered a couple of homes, and we did nothing until I was called to headquarters and told that I'd received 2 Bronze Stars and would be shipped back to the States in 24 hours.
And were you shipped back within 24
hours later? I don't know how I got to the boat, but I remember being on the boat. That particular time I have a lapse of memory as to how I got from Munich to the boat. I don't remember that.
Can you give me a time frame for that, please? When was that?
I don't remember the date. I don't remember. I can't tell you. I don't remember.
Do you remember the season?
Well, it had to be just about the time we had a victory in Europe. I think it was shortly after that that I was shipped back to the States and told that I would not be going to Japan, where the division was going to Japan, and I would have a 30-day furlough. That's all I knew. I didn't know what was going to happen. But fortunately,
this was after VE Day, Victory in Europe.
It was just after VD, yes, VE Day.
And overall, what was the state of your health at that point, VE Day?
Very good. I weighed 180 pounds, very healthy, very strong, mentally strong, and physically strong.
While we're still in Europe, I just want to get a sense, while you were still there, did you realize what had happened to the Jews under the
Yes,
Nazis?
yes.
Can you tell me how you learned this, how that
I don't know. I
knowledge?
think you learned it by that time. I was able to listen to radio stars and get the Stars and Stripes, and so I read a lot. I heard a lot. I didn't know it extensively, but I knew what happened, and that's what I learned to hate the Germans. I swore I would never go back there, and I swore I would never buy a German product. I no longer have that hate. I learned to eliminate hate from my life.
I think we're having a little technical problem. Can we cut for a minute? I'm losing you here.
Okay, I'm gonna cut.
Okay, we're back. There was a technical problem there for a minute. So you had just told me that you no longer hate the way you did at that time.
I didn't hate. I mean, I did hate, but I learned not to hate anybody or anything. I really would have still not go back to Germany. I wouldn't even today, nor would I buy a German car or a German product if I could help it. I blame the German people just as well for allowing Hitler to do what they did.
I didn't catch everything you said.
I
Could
said
you please repeat
I dislike the German people for allowing Hitler to do the things that he did, especially killing Jews and killing blacks and killing anybody that they didn't like. It's called inhumanity to man.
When you look back to your time going through Europe and fighting, did you ever experience any anti-Semitism, even if it wasn't directed at you? But just...
No, not in the. We were too busy to even think about it. No, I never experienced anything.
How did your life change after Germany surrendered in May of '45?
Let me go back to one
Yes.
thing that I just thought about. I remember when we talked about Buchenwald, I knew that my dog tags had J on it for Jewish. And I knew and was told, take those dog tags off and bury them in case you're captured. And I did that. That's how I knew part of it. Now, what happened afterwards, I came home. I was the 30-day furlough, and then I was told to go to Texas, where I was discharged on November the 18th, 1945.
When you left Europe and went back to the States, how did you travel?
Well, I came back from Europe by boat, and then from New Jersey, I came by train to Akron, Ohio.
On the ship, who else was on the ship with you?
About 6,000 people, soldiers.
Were they wounded or were they in good faith, or both?
Both.
What was it like for you to be back in the States after the war?
Elation.
How had America changed while you were in Europe?
To me, they were very good. They got a lot of commendations. I don't think it changed that much, but I don't know. I don't see, didn't see a lot of change. I didn't see a lot of anti-Semitism where I lived. There was some, but I didn't see it. And I would confront it if I did see it. And I did confront it.
Okay, can you explain?
Well, when somebody says there was no Holocaust, because you hear that too, that it's all fiction, and I just stand up and I said, call me a liar. I was there. And if I was there and I saw it, how can you deny it? And then they have their own excuses. Well, it's all make believe. They just, you know the story. It was disgusting.
I asked you how America changed while you were in Europe. How did you change when you were in Europe?
I don't think I changed that much. All I knew is I wanted to go to work, get a job, earn some money, and that was it. I don't think I changed. I was stronger and probably a little bit more wiser, but because I had put everything in back of me and refused to think about it or to talk about it, it helped me get over whatever possible problems that I may mentally have.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what you just said? You put it out of your mind.
Yes,
Can you talk about that a bit more?
of course. When I came home, people asked me about my experiences. I refused to talk about it. It is something that I made a determination that I did not want to talk about the war. It was over with, and I don't want to remember these things. I want to remember the good things, and I refused to talk about it for almost 40 years. I never talked about it. The only person I really talked about it was to my son, who became very interested in it.
After the war, did you experience any nightmares or flashbacks?
And you what?
Nightmares or flashbacks?
No.
What steps did you take to reestablish yourself in civilian life?
Look for a job. I just took that first step and got a job, and there was history. I just went on.
What kind of job?
I took a job as a salesman for a company called Northrop Gaines, which was a subsidiary of Northrop Aircraft.
And what were your duties and
I
responsibilities
became
in this job?
division manager in charge of Ohio and part of Kentucky and Pennsylvania, and decided I didn't like it and quit and went on to the next thing. I kind of moved from one thing to another. I had no stability. None.
Were you interested in going back to school or continuing education?
No, I was only interested in making money, working, and forgetting.
What about in your personal life, your social life?
I don't think I had much of a social life at that time. Of course, I'm sure I dated, but I don't remember much about a social life at all.
Did you eventually get married?
Yes.
Okay. You want to tell us about that at all?
I met this young lady at a hotel in Hollywood, fell in love and married her, and it just so happened, I didn't know that she was Jewish. She was. I met her family. The marriage didn't last 15 years, and it didn't work out anymore. And then I went on, and at the age of 60, I remarried again at 59, I think. And second marriage was extremely, extremely happy. She died 14 years ago.
You have a family, you mentioned?
I have only immediately my son, who lives in LA and comes here once a month or so. He's a working photographer and a sports photographer. And I have in here half the time is my niece and nephew. Other than that, I have really no family. There was 8 of us children in the family. I'm the only one left.
What did you tell your son about your experiences during the war?
Everything. Actually, he joined the 45th. They had a program for sons of veterans, so he knew and learned more about what I did than I knew myself. He followed me right through the war. He knows everything, probably more than I do.
How do you think your wartime experiences impacted you?
I don't think, in the long run, I don't think it had that much of an effect except knowledge of the past, experience about the past. But as far as its effect on my body and mind, I don't think it did affect me. I learned to overcome that.
Has your view of Judaism changed in the course of your lifetime?
Yes. Yes, it has.
Can you please share that with us?
I became more agnostic about all religions, not just Judaism. But I also strongly believe in my faith, although I don't practice it. If I can embellish that a little bit, I believe in a supreme being, but I do not believe in organized religion. And there's many reasons for that, and philosophically it would take too long to explain as to why I came to those conclusions. But it has changed me in that respect. I will never understand man's humanity to man. That is not what religions should be about. I'm aghast at the amount of religious persecution there is, and about the people who believe that they're the only way to heaven, if there is such a place. And proselyte, it's against my very core belief. But I am religious. I want to make that point. I believe in the 10 Commandments. I believe in everything that you believe or anybody else believes. But I do not practice it. Well, I practice to the extent that I live my life. I live my life through my own philosophy, which is the power of positive thinking. I'm a very positive person. The elimination of negativity, the elimination of hate, the elimination of prejudice and bias. I live my life in what I think is a good relationship with the Supreme Being without being orthodox about it. But it would take me too many hours to explain that to you.
explain perhaps how your experiences as a younger man helped inform your views now at this point in your life?
Well, I think all experiences of everybody in a younger life influences your future, and your present experiences is having the ability to overcome all that negativity in it and turn every negativity into a positive thing. Because no matter how bad things are, there are people who are worse off than you. No matter how bad things are, there are positive elements to every negativity. And if you look at life that way, you eliminate that negativity, and you'll live longer because of it.
You mentioned a few moments ago about responding to a Holocaust denier. Have you had many experiences like that?
Well, I don't know if you call them, but I've had several. I've had at least 4, 5, maybe 6. But when I hear it, I try to stop it right then and there. I just can't tolerate that. It doesn't. I don't think it helps. They don't believe you anyway, and sometimes it's an exercise in futility. But I'm going to do it anytime I see it.
Have you ever spoken publicly about your wartime experiences?
No.
Before I ask about more current things, I want to pause for a minute and ask you, is there anything that you haven't spoken about with regard to World War II and what you saw, what you did, that you haven't shared with us that you would like to?
I'm sure there is, but nothing that I think I deem that important. You know, it's just one day after another, one fight after another, and there's no way to explain it. You can't pinpoint any specific thing because there is no such thing as specific thing. They're all run together.
You said more than once that during the war you learned to hate. Did your capacity as a soldier change once you started to hate?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I don't know how to explain that, but what you witnessed in the past became a part of your present. So you learn how to fight harder. You didn't mind killing somebody for what they were, and that's a terrible thing to say, I guess, but you learn to hate the Germans from what you saw. And I don't like to use that word hate, but I did.
I want to turn to more recent events for a few moments. October 7th and the attack in Israel. Can you share your thoughts about what happened 6 months ago?
Yes, I was aghast when I saw that because it was another indication of anti-Semitism, another indication of man's humanity to man. And the first thing I did is order an Israeli flag and flew it next to the American flag in front of my house. It's still there.
What do you make of the rise of anti-Semitism since then, in these last 6 months?
Well, I blame Congress. I blame the president. I blame politics because we're doing nothing to confront it. I believe we betrayed Israel, and that to me makes no sense. I don't know how else to explain it, but the simplicity of the argument is not understandable because we blame Israel, but we didn't. Israel attacked nobody. Why are we not blaming Hamas instead of Israel? Why are we not blaming Hamas for not releasing the prisoners they have? There's just no justification for any of this, and I'm upset with the government for not doing more about it. I think they should give Israel everything they have. We have an agreement with them, we have a pact with them, and we're doing nothing. We're trying to help them mastermind the war, and to the best of my knowledge, everything we have done in the past under the present administration has been destructive. Nothing has helped. And we have no right doing what we're doing. Yes, I don't like it. And I'm making a point. I'm not ashamed, and I'm not shy enough to not say what I think. I do. And let me put this in, frankly, I want more people who agree with me than disagree with me.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about anything that we've discussed or anything that we haven't discussed that you'd like to introduce?
Well, no, I think I've said I hope I've answered all your questions.
You have. I just wanted to make sure before we conclude that you covered all the things that you wanted.
Yes, the only thing, I'm very strong in my belief about the power of positive thinking, and I want to leave that as an issue for others to understand that the importance of the elimination of negativity and the importance of being positive. To remind everybody their cup is half full, not half empty. And I pride myself in the fact that I've been able to do miracles within my belief. And I'd like to be able to help other people do the same thing. And I am helping other people do the same thing.
The people who will be watching this in the future may not have been born yet. So what message do you have for them? What would you like them to understand about the world you lived through with the war and everything else? What would you like them to take away from this interview?
That war is not a game. I'm against war. But sometimes war is necessary for survival. I believe people should strongly think about what they're doing and what they're saying, and should learn from the past and not try to erase it from memory. The past is our history. The past teaches you the future.
I thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
And what are we looking at here?
The picture of me on furlough at home after the war.
And your name, sir?
Eugene Beck, B-E-C-K.
And when and where was it taken?
Akron, Ohio.
What year?
1945.
Thank you. And what is this, sir?
This represents 3 bronze stars, 2 for heroism and 1 for valor in combat. And what's interesting about the V, although there was 350,000 bronze stars issued during World War II, only 9,000 total are issued with the V for valor. So I'm very proud of that.
And when did you receive it?
After the war, 2 of them I got on the last day I was in Munich, or the day before. That would gave me enough points to get out of the to go on furlough.
And your name, sir?
Eugene Beck, B-E-C-K.
Is there anything more you want to tell us about this?
No, I'm just proud of it.
Okay, thank you. And what is this, sir?
This is the Purple Heart that I received on the battle for the Siegfried Line, and sometimes in December 1944.
And your name?
Eugene Beck.
And when did you physically get this?
I got this one at the hospital by the commanding officer at the hospital in a small ceremony. After
In what country?
yeah, that was
Okay.
I think it was done in Besançon, France, at the hospital in Besançon, France.
And what year?
That would be 1944.
Thank you. And what are we looking at now?
We're looking at a cup of my portrait taken on my 100th birthday party.
And your name?
Eugene Beck.
So when was this taken?
The 23rd of last year at my 100th birthday party.
23rd of April.
Yeah,
And where was it taken?
at my nephew's or niece's house, where they threw a party for me.
Now, you told me a moment ago why you don't have more artifacts and other things with you. Can you share with us why this is all you
Yes.
have at this moment?
I think it goes back 5 years ago. I was considered terminal with cancer and was given 4 months to live. So I took all my artifacts and gave it to my son, who kept them, who wanted them and kept them because I didn't think I'd survive, but I did.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude?
No, that I can think of.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, and this now concludes the interview.
Thank you very much for your time and your courtesy.